much, guys. And my session here is called XBRL GL, the Foundation for Freedom and Choice in a Touch, Taste, and Feel World. Have you heard about the latest pizza vending machine? Just imagine fresh pizza made from scratch with no human interaction in a matter of minutes from water and flour from a machine just down the hall. Does that sound great, hot pizza? Would you enjoy a pizza grown in a laboratory? Yes. Wait a minute. My friend from Milan has some concerns about this. He thinks that pizza in this way might be artless, lifeless, closer to frozen than to delivery pizza. Now, some people think of XBRL very much as an effort to reduce the helpful artistry and the human component of reporting, and I put forth to you, my friends here today, that XBRL, in the guise of XBRL GL in particular, the global ledger taxonomy, is the glue. Maybe not the water and flour, but the glue that can help restore the personal connection to an organization's books and records and maintain and communicate that connection from computer to people. Yes, we can still have artists in accounting. In the digital world, we can connect from the touch, taste, and feel that we still want to the efficiencies that we need. Now, some of you are aware that after starting my career at Arthur Andersen in tax, not audit, in tax, I moved on to an incredible but brief period at the Moore Candy Company of Rochester, New York, manufacturers of luscious chocolates, saltwater taffy, lollipops, oh, my mouth waters. And I was in that Willy Wonka period that I fell in love with computers, having a brand spanking new, anyone name that computer? The IBM 5120 computer, the precursor to the PC today. And I used that for payables and receivables. And I wrote my first basic program on it to put in all these checks for bank reconciliation, although I still did my general ledger in one of those big black books. Now, the plant manager at the candy company was a crusty, old-school candy manufacturer named Gottfried Florian Hofer. And we called him Flory for short, and he was famous for his aphorisms, saying things like, "Sugar's good for ya." And the only ones that like peanut butter are Americans and elephants. Now, Flory was all for automation, and we used equipment both state-of-the-art and even some that was 80 years old that may have belonged to Joseph Demarest himself. Quick quiz, Joseph Demarest is the man credited with inventing the commercial marshmallow in Rochester, New York, around 80 years before I worked there. Yes, indeed, the candy maker honored as the inventor of the commercial marshmallow. 3 points for you. But Flory said you had to be part of what's going on. No matter what you had around you, no matter the automation, you still had to make sure that you were tasting it and touching it and feeling it. And an offsite owner and manager just couldn't understand or make things happen. Now, we fast forward a few years, and at the time I was with Rochester, New York's largest local CPA firm. I was deeply involved with evaluating the, yes, IBM PC, yes, the original one, and a brand new thing called Lotus 123 that I became a Jedi Master and led the emergence of a local accounting software practice. And there was some complex to implement stuff with names like Real World and Open Systems, and then there was some easy-to-use stuff with names like Will. You may know that there was this thing called the One Rights, where you had this string of checks and you wrote things out and it had the ledger behind it. And then there was something called One Right Plus, which translated that to the computer world, sort of the QuickBooks of its day. Now, the CPA firm partners at that time felt that teaching our clients to use accounting software was a really, really bad thing because it insulated them from the touch, taste, and feel of the accounting. That shoebox that we all dread nowadays was the CPA's opportunity to touch all the business documents before they posted everything. What do they always do? Debit cash, credit cash. Why should I have to redo everything? They felt the CPA added the greatest benefit when they could be in the details, tasting, touching, and feeling, rather than just looking at that sterile period end summary. Running that accounting software practice meant fighting my own firm's partners. Now, those of us involved in XBRL may feel that way still today. Now, the connection from CPA to business has faced an increasing number of barriers since then, from paper to computer, from computer to web, from web to the cloud. The physical and even virtual distance between the operations and the CPA has continued to grow. Some would say the same applies to management and their own data. They need it freed up. They need to have access. And I'm glad to say, as you've been hearing today, technology doesn't have to be a new layer separating the profession from its clients, the clients from their data. In fact, when I helped launch what's become XBRL a dozen years ago, my goal wasn't the technical burden many people perceive it to be, but a way to leverage standardization to help small businesses and their professionals to cope with and benefit from information technology. So let's discuss XBRL. As I was trying to help my small and growing business clients, I noticed that they kept getting stuck when trying to use their own data. They spent hours entering that stuff into the computer and they couldn't use it. Why? We've heard about the 5 whys. I tried to lead that back. Well, they couldn't get their data because they didn't know how to use the specialty report writer, or maybe they didn't even pay for it in the first place. Why? Because report writers were and are hard to use. You have to understand computers, technology, your operating system, the file structure of your accounting products, the specialized query language or report format of your report writer, where the data is stored in the data fields, what they're called, the different parameters. Well, why do they have to know that? Why do you have to know where the data is stored and why is it called? We don't know what computer www.amazon.com is on. It just finds it. Do I have to know what you call the primary account number? Why can't I just ask for the account main ID wherever it happens to be? You enter invoices. We receive checks. We put in journal entries. Why does everyone have to call it a different thing? Well, we want to let people call it a different thing but provide that bridge. And so my goal was XBRL GL, Global Ledger Taxonomy, would help span that bridge, span those gaps. Do you need to get information from your external payroll provider and put into your system? Or do you need to share your trial balance and details with your CPA? Or do you need to move property-specific depreciation information from your depreciation package off to someone else? Or do you need to move from New Views to Macola to SAP to whatever? It should be plug and play. So my goal 12 years ago, as it is today, is that there be as simple a format as possible that every accounting software developer can use as an import-export or report writer description format. That if a company exported its data as XBRL GL, it's going to be easy to upgrade and use that data to the, latest version of the software they want to use. CPAs and bankers and whoever needs to have access to that detailed data for doing taxes or making loans or hooking together systems or doing analysis or hooking into the cloud, that you can do so. That a small company doesn't have to worry about their data being held captive by some application or some external party. The need today is just as big as it was in the 90s. The cloud does offer some really great potential benefits. Flexibility, on-demand resources, elasticity, that's hard to say at this point, elasticity, self-service. But when your data is in the cloud, how do you get at it? How do you use it? How, once it's there, can you make sure you can work with it? What's happening behind the scenes? Does anyone use Facebook? Has anyone gone to Facebook on one day and then come back the next day and said, what happened? Where are the functions that I use? Them? They just changed everything under me. What happens when that's your accounting software? What happens to the training and the use of your people? I wanted to protect in those early days my clients from the outsourcers changing literally payroll journal, updated, new, improved payroll journal. How do I enter this information into my system? How do we cope with changes from the cloud accounting software vendors? How do we cope with the hooks to workpaper and everything else? The good news is that cloud services, they make sure the software is up to date and maintained and as bug-free as possible. The bad news is it's an unstable platform, and how do we make sure that we can get the data and work with the data? We used to do parallel systems and train people when we could, and now it just goes all out from under us. And hopefully a holistic generic standard like XBRL can help facilitate getting at the data, working with the data, sending it up, bringing it back. One standard useful for the company data, useful for the financial auditor, useful for banks or anyone else that needs that access. The MACPA, as you've heard today, is a shining example. You've been hearing about their adoption of XBRL to free their data. This is happening in many different places. We've heard recently about the Turkish government, that huge companies, just because they need to keep the control, they have to keep 10 years worth of audit trails. 10 years on paper takes warehouses, 10 years in XBRL, reasonable and workable. And so they're making that happen. They're trying to free up the tyranny of 10 years worth of paper or proprietary formats that who knows what it'll be in 10 years. We're working to make XBRL an option for any number of new emerging data requests. With a single global generic standard like XBRL, everyone can have their own view of the data. Everyone can see it in their own way. Everyone can have the touch and the taste and the feel that they need, but tie the data and the source to a single holistic generic manner. The encouragement here today is that the community continues to get behind XBRL so it doesn't have to get behind a battery of different region and purpose-specific specifications that our own profession may be helping lead, so that we can support the battery of individual things that people need in an important way. The accounting profession has seen accounting go from paper to computer, from computer to the internet to the cloud. We're not going back to the shoebox. Can we have artists in accounting? Absolutely. But will it be that old way? Absolutely not. With a common, detailed ERP data format, we can continue to touch, taste, and feel the data if we can get behind and support the foundational standard. For the Tolkien fans, I'm going a little far to say one semantic to rule them all, one semantic to find them, one semantic to bring them all in, and in the confusion bind them. I'm not quite sure where that's going. But XBRL can be that one ring or one semantic. Won't you join me, as you've heard others today, in fulfilling a fantasy not quite unlike that, but one that someday a piece of business information, once it hits any computer, anywhere, never needs to be retyped as it moves through the business reporting and audit information supply chain. I hope that we can see that day and make this worthwhile for everyone. Artists in accounting, touch, taste, and feel. XBRL can meet your needs. Let's get behind it. Thank you.